Hey everybody, welcome to Talk-A-Raptor episode -4. This is Talk-A-Raptor. Let's kick things off today with Kuroko's basketball. Now, some of you saw me cosplaying as Aomine Daiki from this show, and you assumed that I must have loved the show. Well, that's not quite the case. You see, I mainly picked the character because I thought I could pull him off, the costume is pretty cheap, and I was watching Kuroko's basketball around the time I was registering for Anime Boston. The show itself starts off as a fairly generic sports anime, but it did show signs of really getting interesting towards the end. So I'm going to reserve total judgment until the second season comes out later this year. As of right now, it's just a single plus. Next up we have Shingeki no Kyojin, aka Attack on Titan, currently airing anime that I'm caught up to the manga on and I had big expectations for. So far I'm pleased with about every aspect of the show, except the pacing. At some points it's just way too slow. That certainly doesn't mean you shouldn't watch it, I'm just saying that this already great anime could be even better. Let's also not forget that the manga had some problems with jumping back and forth between some points in the show's timeline, so it's not like that was perfect either. My biggest concern is how they're going to end this first season, and that was my concern since first hearing that this manga was getting an adaptation. This being currently running shonen manga, the options really aren't that pretty. I'm hoping that they just find a convenient endpoint and just cut things off there, but you also figure there's a chance they may try to invent a new ending that's probably going to suck. For now, however, I'm just going to give the show the benefit of the doubt, assume it's going to end well, and give it a rating based on what I've seen so far, which is triple plus. Next up is Laputa Castle in the Sky. Like every other Miyazaki Ghibli film I've seen out there, it's great despite having some pretty wussy themes. A very fun and adventurous movie, great characters, a solid plot, visually stunning, some robots that were pretty cool despite having feelings, and more themes about how humanity is destroying the planet. Final grade, double plus. Next up is Death Billiards. This title has nothing misleading about it. It has death, and it has billiards. What more could you possibly want? This one-shot OVA packed a ton of excitement into 20 minutes, and the only thing I really didn't like about it is that it had a somewhat open-ended ending. I hate it when that happens, and just because of that, I'm gonna knock it down from perfection to a double plus. Speaking of shows that did almost everything right, but still managed to make one particular screw-up that turned me off, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Here you have an old-school shonen anime with new-school animation, great character design, and cool characters. So where did it screw up? It just has some really shitty fights. Way too many, and way too shitty. This is especially true of the first arc, but the problems linger on through the second arc as well. The tactics during the fight are either really dumb or really dull, or both. The bad guys are supposed to be kind of invincible, but they just set themselves up for failure. The sidekicks are totally useless, and there's a lot of annoying self-narration, among other problems. As I said before, the fighting is my only real complaint, but since this is a shonen anime and fighting is the core of it, I can't give the show any higher than a single plus. Now let's check out the second and third Berserk movies for fighting done right. I saw the first movie a while back, and of course it's Berserk, so I'm gonna love it. But it didn't really add anything that the original Berserk series didn't, and the CG was kind of lame at times, so I only gave it a double plus. The second and third movies, however, really gave Berserk the ending it deserved. If you saw the original anime, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The CG also looked a lot tighter in these movies, so I really have no reason to give it anything less than a triple plus. Alas, all good things must come to an end, and so you will get my first negative review of the day. Robotics notes. The problem with the show is that it is really boring, and also it doesn't make any sense. Basically, if you take the weakness of Chaos Head and combine it with the weakness of the first half of Steins Gate, you get robotics notes. The show is all about character development for the first about 2/3 of the show, and that's not much of a problem if the characters are good, but these are all boring and pedophilic. Well, I shouldn't say all. I mean, as far as character design goes, there are some hot Nason characters, but they're all kind of emo and just The one character I did kind of like was the nerd girl, but she was really more of a gimmick than anything else. The show kind of steps up the action towards the end, but it's still unclear to me exactly why they needed a giant robot to save the world in the first place, and the way the robot went from completely useless to slightly useful and managed to save the world, it just doesn't add up. At the end of the day, I think it would have been more interesting to read actual robotics notes than to watch robotics notes. Final grade, single tilde. Now bouncing back to something great, Chihaya Furu Season 2. It ended strong, so as promised, I'm giving it the triple plus. Just want to take a little time to address one criticism I've heard of this season, in that some say it moved too slowly. I guess you could say the show moved slowly, but the episodes did not. While I was watching the episodes, I was totally engaged, every second was beautiful. And then I'd finish watching the show and be like, hey, wait a second, absolutely nothing happened in that episode. So I'd be starving for the next episode, and the vicious cycle would continue from week to week. Still, I never felt that the show was slow while I was actually watching it. If you think it's slow, well, maybe you're watching it wrong. Go ahead and call it Slice of Life, that might make you feel better. In any case, this is an amazing show, everyone should watch it, triple plus. Next up is Hunter x Hunter, with emphasis on the X. I gotta say, it's holding up a lot better than I expected it to. Greed Island, it turned out a lot better than I remember it being in the original OVA. And the Chimera Ant arc is turning out a lot better than I would have expected from all the crappy art and hiatuses from the manga. So, I'm really glad with the way this is turning out right now. The series is still a double plus. Final review for today is Moyoshimon Returns. Like I said last time, I was a little worried about this season because a lot of people who loved the first one did not like the second. I kind of see where they're coming from. At the same time, they're idiots. The first arc of the show, which was centered around Oikawa, it was a little boring, but it cured a pretty significant deficiency in the first season, so you should really appreciate what that arc did even if you didn't particularly like it. Meanwhile, the second arc of the show, which took things over to France, was quite solid overall. My complaint from the previous Talk-A-Raptor still stands, however, in that this season really didn't have those standout moments of greatness that the first season did have. So at the end of the day, I'm only going to give this a single plus. That covers all the anime for now. So I'm going to introduce two more triple pluses outside the world of anime. First is Avenue Q. This is a musical, and the less you know about it, the better. Just watch it, I promise you'll love it. Finally, I'd like to give a triple plus to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. I avoided this attraction for a while because I was under the impression that it was going to be mostly modern art, which I really have no desire to pay money for. Thankfully, I was totally wrong. This museum has everything, and the modern art is just relegated to a little corner in the back. In conclusion, if you like stuff, you will love the Metropolitan Museum of Art. That's all for now. This is Talk-A-Raptor signing off.